All right, Shemaya, we are on now for a rune reading. This is Seth Gizboza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts and Occult Science. One of the first things I want to ask you before we really get started is what was it that inspired you to want to do this?
I've just been drawn to the runes for a long time. I have a set of my own that I've worked with. I recently discovered you because I was researching about the Thunder God line, and I was guided to your website and listened to your podcast that came up. And I really resonated with what you were saying, and I felt the truth, and I saw that you did rune readings, so I signed up.
All right, Shemaya, it's good to have you on. And how long have you been in study with the runes?
I've just had my own set.
Did you buy it or did you have someone make it for you?
I've had these like 30 years, a long time.
30 years.
Yeah, made out of some river stone. Somebody had handmade them, and I was just drawn to them. I haven't done any intense study with them, but I'm really drawn to them. That's why I saw that you did tarot readings and different things like that, but for me, it's the runes.
And a lot of people don't understand this about the tarot. The tarot is the path of Odin. And so the runes correspond. Everything runs in correspondence in terms presented on the services page. And there's even more advanced initiations that are going to come in the future as things continue to develop. But everything runs in correspondence in context to the original magical tradition. And there's a lot of key components that work in correspondence and are congruent, and I have the gift of being able to see how it all correlates and connects. The tarot is a part of everything, the runes, and many other things in terms of what is actually there within us. And there's many different portions of the Fire Letter Codex that have been given to every race tribe has their Fire Letter Codex. On top of the fact that we have our own personal Fire Letter Codex in terms of star coordination and connection to the higher force. Divine language that springs forth out of the well of Orth when that is tapped. So it goes much deeper than the surfaces of what people have observed in terms of the mythos and a lot of other things throughout time.
You're speaking language that I have not heard before, yet I understand it. And so what is your story? How did you become initiated into this, or were you just born with it?
I could definitely say I was born with it, but I wasn't raised in it. It was just there. It's in my blood and bones, and I can't help it. Mm-hmm. And over time, I've discovered, the truth about these things.
Right.
It's basically working with energy. I don't fuck with spirits. I don't do incantations, conjuring, or invocation. We all have our own eternal spirits to integrate here. And this is what most of the new age organized occult fucking bullshit doesn't address. And so my approach to these arts and sciences, let alone the true magical path, is completely different. And this is why I encourage people to do the full rites initiation session, so I can really assist in laying the proper foundation. Because anything you look into without that proper foundation, you're just going to be going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole.
Right. So what is the full rites initiation?
Full rites initiation session is full initiation into the occult at ground level. And it doesn't matter how long anyone's been studying or what they know. I've spoken with people that don't know anything about these things. And I've spoken with people that are allegedly advanced along the path and basically breaks it down, taking things back to what their foundation is or isn't. And without certain things, without the proper foundation, you're not going to be able to navigate correctly. And that's why there's so much confusion that is out there in terms of information. And it's one thing to this, to that, to this, to that, to this, to that. But focus in terms of pathwork trajectory, and it's highly, highly personal in terms of the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms and how things actually work. It's not a group teaching. It's very, very specific to the individual based upon these things. And so this is why I encourage to do that, because the way that it works for you isn't the same way it works for me, isn't the same way it works for anybody else, but is based upon principles and fundamentals, taking it back to the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms and how things work, the actual mechanics of navigation. And so the runes are definitely a part of this, but there's so much more.
This initiation then gives a person the tools and understanding in navigating consciousness.
It gives you a blueprint and a map to navigate everything. That would be also things in context to any sort of information or knowledge that you're looking into. You're going to have very strong discernment to know what is fucking bullshit and what is not, because there's a lot of bullshit out there.
Well, especially now.
And I don't expect anyone to take my word for anything. I expect my students and initiates to look into these matters for themselves. If you do things correctly, you will come to the right conclusions. It will confirm itself.
So how did you learn these things?
I've been on this path for well over 20 years. Before I actually had my initiation back in the year 2000, I was into these things, but I didn't have that soul spark ignition. The soul spark ignition is basically the most important factor and the deciding factor otherwise in terms of everything I'm getting at. That ignition happened, and the ignition is real and essentially has been guiding from within my core in terms of all of the things that I've had to go through leading up to the present moment. And there's been a lot of nets, traps, and snares I've had to rip through. One can have a real authentic initiation and go through the rites to which I'm getting at. And you're not always going to be in a place of ignition. Be in a place of ignition. That's the other factor, because of life and a bunch of different things that can unfold. And if you try to run away, you better bet your ass is going to snap you the fuck back sooner or later. That's the difference here. Because to deny that is to deny yourself and is to deny what is there within your core in terms of the template. I know what grid works I'm connected to. So it really doesn't matter in terms of what anybody else out there could read in context to residue. That is the difference. That is the discernment from within yourself. This ignition has to happen. That is the deciding factor. And people are going to try to tell me what I'm connected to or what I'm not connected to. I know what I'm connected to, because I didn't just go through what I did for no reason to stand there and allow anyone to undermine what I am in trajectory with. It's never going to happen. And everything I do speak forth and how I conduct myself and how I communicate is coming from a place of great care and passion and consideration, knowing the difference. That much I do know about myself. Without that, the soul spark ignition, it doesn't matter what we assume to know. We don't know thyself and we don't know the universe or the higher force, let alone what the gods and goddesses are. And see, things to the gods and goddesses in context to the ancestors, the gods and goddesses summon us. They are looking to us. Why? Because we are the new mythos here. And see where a lot of shit gets fucked up in terms of what's on the other side of these disincarnates, all of these alien factions, all of these different spirits and entities or whatever. First of all, they don't have the actual falls to incarnate. So what happens in terms of all of the fuckery riding in on the consciousness and genetics when it comes to the etheric body, they riddle the fuck out, amplifying whatever issues are there in terms of loose to be able to fuel line their fucking grid works, which is where the gods and goddesses are caught as well in terms of the ancestors. And this is why it's so confusing, because people do not know the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms. And so playing on the codex in terms of blood codes and soul codes and all of these other things I've mentioned on the platform, this is what's being raked out when we need to become the portal. We are the portal. And to seal off the rift in context to the void. See, the gods and goddesses in context to the ancestors, they don't want worship. They don't want blood. They don't need any of that. In terms of our connection to the higher force, we become sustained. And we are not vampiric in terms of how we conduct ourselves. We come at life from a place of empowerment. We come at all of this from that star core ignition, which will route out any sort of backdoor jurisdiction. So we need to start seeing ourselves from a different point of view and actualize and standing our fucking ground to that ignition knowing the difference. And the ignition is real. And there's been a lot of nets, traps, and snares I've had to rip through. All of these things I've mentioned. Because of life and a bunch of different things that can unfold. And if you try to run away, you better bet your ass it's going to snap you back sooner or later. That's the difference here. Because to deny that is to deny what is there within your core in terms, I know what grid works I'm connected to. So it really doesn't matter in terms of what anybody else out there could read in context to residue. If they don't have that trajectory, they're not going to be able to see what I'm getting at here. They're only going to be able to see to a certain level. And that's the difference. That's how you can gauge where people are. And there's so many things I could say. We're here for a rune reading today. But again, these things are important to consider at the very least.
Okay.
And some of the other stuff that I get into in terms of the initiation, I don't have on there because that's what I get into with people.
Mm-hmm.
The rune set made for me from a woman in Iceland. She said that they are at least 100,000 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very powerful in terms. So I just started doing rune readings not that long ago, actually, because again, like I said, the runes are not to be trifled with. I take these arts and sciences with passion, and I'm being held accountable here.
Yeah.
And so my approach is completely different in turn.
Can certainly feel the energy around. It's big. So
Right. So you obviously have questions. Focus on whatever questions they are, but don't ask me directly. As I stir the runes here in this rune bag, the weavers, petition of Norns. And with the reading, I am going to encourage you to think for yourself, touching upon things in context to the layout of the runes, and I will be going both into the upright and murk stave observations. What is your mission? Draw us to the runes, and what are you capable of? The runes that have been pulled here, you have Fehu, Isa, Manas, and Dagas. There is a lot of circulation of power. Fehu, it's inheritance, indicating that you have achieved a certain level of success. It's clear with the first rune. You have a lot of personal power as well. There's a lot of luck here in terms of anything that you would put your hands to. And it's not to say that it's just one thing. It could be multiple things. But whatever you do, you will be successful. You will prosper. This is what Fehu is indicating. It's going into every direction. All of this is going out from the center. Now, in terms of things being murk stave here, there's obviously been a delay in terms of what you sense that there's more, that there's something more. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of missteps that may have come along the way, things that you didn't notice before. Go and look in some places that you didn't consider. Override this obstacle that you're dealing with. In context to Isa, you're procrastinating on something.
There is definitely an energy of procrastination.
Right. But there's also a lot of introspection and meditation. What the hell is this? And this is what Isa is saying as well. And of course, you want to preserve what you have built up until this point with Fehu. Like I said, anything you put your hands to, you're going to succeed. So it could be something that you never tried. Mm-hmm. You obviously have things to fall back on or fall into otherwise. And that's great. But that feeling of stagnation, you're frozen for some reason. And this year has been insane. The world has lost its fucking mind. Shemaya.
Right. Well, I feel like part of my mission is to transcend all this shit that's going on.
Right. If you really want to know what your mission is, in terms of anything that I do the full rites initiation session. Okay. There I can really break it down and show you how to actually discover that in alignment. Okay.
Okay.
As far as the reading, yeah, you're afraid to make a mistake.
Part of it is like this feeling of like, I don't want to make the wrong decision and trap myself. And yet I feel trapped. It's like,
Right. Listen to what you just said.
I know.
I don't want to make the wrong decision and feel trapped, but you feel trapped.
That's right.
So the decision to not make a decision is that mistake that you don't want to make, making a decision. And that's the decision you're making.
Wow.
And so that to have that sense of control over everything, we can't necessarily control the outcome of events that happen in our lives. The fact that I am not in control. The higher force is real.
Right.
It's absolutely real.
That's right.
And it wants what is best for
all of us.
For all of us. So whatever choices we make doesn't mean you can't go back and try to fix things or whatever. You do what you can to make it good, no matter what the fuck is going on. And we have to be good unto ourselves as well.
I've just, oh God.
Right. There it is.
Yeah.
And there comes Isa.
That's right.
It's preservation.
Right. Right.
I really feel it with you right now, picking up on that.
Yeah, that's right.
That feeling of stagnation. That's the energy of chaos. It's chaos. It's entropy. It's freeze.
Well, what's coming up for me right now as we're talking about this is I let myself free fall. And
right now, I know you're thinking about the other person, but what about you in that whole dynamic to whatever outcome may have manifested or didn't manifest or
right.
You know, you free fall and what?
Well, what ended up happening is just that feeling of preservation of self.
You're afraid to be vulnerable. You wanted to free fall and be open, right?
Right.
But it wasn't received, was it?
It wasn't reciprocated. Right.
So that in retrospect, you felt the energy of that pushback, which made you go into Isa yourself.
Right. Preservation. And then that whole, defending and protecting and, it's that whole duality thing. And it's not ultimately where I know I'm called to live. I really want to live in balance and openness and vulnerability and.
Right. And this is why people got to be doing the real work. Otherwise, you're dragging that shit into every situation that comes.
That's right.
I get it. And don't be afraid to free fall. Otherwise, you're going to freeze.
That's right.
You're going to become stagnant. And all of that procrastination, I mean, we're here to live and expand and, but just all this fucking stuff this year, it has put people in that because of what we're actually moving through. And I touched upon that in terms of the platform. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Fuck. It's a major step back in consciousness, like 30% where everyone went back into fight, flight, or freeze. Isa, self-preservation above all. That is solipsistic ideology. Satan is speaking against solipsism, but it's like all religions, man. It's just fucking hypocritical as fuck. People are extremely fucking selfish. They don't give a fuck about anybody else except themselves. So to really connect and open up and free fall, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be fearless.
Right.
It's not love or hate or conflict or expansion that we're dealing with. It's fear. It's fear of anything that makes us really feel alive. We want to make the excuse not to expand. Why? Because that forces us to face our fucking pain. To truly love, it's going to force you to face yourself. It's going to force you to face your pain. Most people don't know about the whole dynamic is that is where you put the bomb. That is where it's meant to be put so that things are moved through. What happens instead? We become afraid and then we end up projecting upon the other person and blame shifting and all this other fucking crap because we're afraid to actually feel past that place where we have developed so many coping skills, we wouldn't know how to function outside of that.
Well, it definitely took me to a whole nother level of looking at myself and looking at my own issues around control. So ultimately, I know it was teacher for me. But I guess as I'm talking with you, I'm realizing there's still a seed of pain there. And it's like you were saying, it's this calling for me. It just feels like a calling to be in relationship and not isolate.
We need to overcome. We need to not allow this bullshit to fucking destroy connection.
When it was all happening, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, what is going on here? There was so much confusion and trying to understand what was happening. And yeah.
It's not to say that everyone that's in your life is a fucking mirror. I don't agree with that concept. People are mirrors unto themselves.
I feel like I'm really starting to learn that, Sethicus, that I have to let go of reflection on the outside, especially now with what is happening in society. I mean, I could go into like some stuff, you know, with this whole COVID thing. And, you know, I've met up with that energy, like face to face. And, but I have, you know.
Anything that we experience ultimately, especially in terms of really close partnerships, are going to force you to face yourself, vice versa. And that's where the bullshit happens, because once all the phases go away, you get a taste of potential of what's there right at the start. You're not in control, and all the control issues and the pullback in context to Issa, that preservation. What are we so fucking afraid of? You want to know what we're really afraid of?
Really living in love.
And that's our natural state. That's our natural state.
That's right.
But it's become so unnatural because of the fucking relays and all that kind of stuff. When you experience that power for real, it starts to route all of that shit the fuck out. So the projections that we experience in terms of putting that onto another person, you're just doing it to yourself. And then your attitude shifts and your state of mind goes away from being in free fall. And then you go into freeze. Yeah.
Free fall to freeze.
Because you're afraid it's going to bottom out.
I'm afraid of losing myself.
That is your ego fucking with you. Okay.
I know. I get that.
You're afraid to lose yourself, but that self that you're afraid to lose is not the true self. That's the ego trying to preserve itself behind your pain. And you would rather be in pain than that free fall. Because the ego, it wants to be God.
Like if I'm in a pool of sewage, I can't expect it to be anything else than what it is, you know?
You're already in a pool of your own. And the only way it's going to be released is if you are in connection, powerful enough to route it the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that first and foremost goes back to connection to the higher force.
Yes.
So that you don't end up sabotaging something that could potentially be amazing. But it's like that on the other end of the equation as well. And if people aren't willing to fucking do that, then it fucking sucks. The equation is inevitable.
Yes.
Because there might be one person that really wants to get the fucking breakthrough, and I can relate to that because I understand what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. It's worth going through all of the fucking pain necessary to achieve that. Unfortunately, again, it just goes back to your capacity because it's not meant to be drudgery. I mean,
right.
Why is it so hard for us as humans
to,
tap into that success of Fehu here in terms of the reading for you? You have to earn it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not authentic. You take it for granted. You take it for granted. And people take it for granted. What do? They squander it for Issa. Because now they're forced to face themselves. All the masks that we hide behind, all that shit that's happening in the reality field, manifesting in terms of symbolism. We are hiding from who we really are, past it all. Because we have been conditioned to be afraid of what we really want. And people say, well, that's fucking bullshit, Sethicus. I'm not afraid of what I really want. Bullshit. As soon as you get it for real, the fear factor kicks in that it's going to be lost or it's going to be ripped away from you.
That's right.
Push it away.
That's right.
Push it away.
That's
but at the same time, you want it so much, it's this fucking teeter-totter effect that keeps you in a place of freeze. I want to make the choice but I'm making the choice not to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to fuck up. I want everything to be perfect. It never fucking is. It's not about perfection. It's about being perfected, moving through these things, moving through this process unto ourselves and one another. Okay, Shemaya, I'm going to pull this into a break now. This is Seth Gizboza, Black Earth Productions, here on a rune reading. If anybody out there is interested in services, check out the website at blackearthproductions.com. We'll be right back after the break. With that, we're back now from the break. This is Seth Gizboza, Black Earth Productions, here on a rune reading with Shemaya. And now to continue forward, in terms of the reading and some other things you wanted to mention.
There's that whole collective piece to it too, because I did this journey where I was seeing how I would let myself get so far, and then it was exactly as you said, when the happiness came in, when the joy came in, I couldn't have it. I wasn't allowed to have it. And there was this feeling of I was a sinner. And sinners can't get that. And I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? Like, I'm not Catholic. I'm not, religious. I'm not any of this stuff. And it felt so much like it was also a collective.
Yeah.
The collective wanted to keep me in a certain place. So there's that whole dance too between me and then I'm also part of the collectives. Anyway, that piece can get very.
It's the collective unconscious grid works in terms of what is being moved through. Most people, they're at the first veil because they haven't been doing this work.
That's exactly right.
So a lot of these energies that need to be transmuted in terms of Isa. Listen, the energy of chaos is not what people assume. If you're getting into an argument with someone and it's really heated, you're not in a place of chaos. That's not chaos. Chaos is when you go into entropy and fear to that point where you can't even connect with yourself or connect with others. That is a very dangerous place to be. It just forces a fucking wall. That wall is actually a fucking prison.
Yeah.
There's no flowing river. There's no flow. There's no catharsis happening. So the next rune in the reading here is Manas. And this is everything to do with mankind, the awareness of mankind. Where is the awareness at? And a lot of questions here in terms of this reading, in terms of relationship. This is a part of the clarity I think you're asking for in this reading. The wheel is what I choose going to bring what I think it's going to bring. Because so far, nothing has brought what you maybe assumed it would. So what is it that you're really looking for?
Love.
Right.
Yeah. Love.
And to really experience that, do you love yourself enough to be able to truly, genuinely, authentically love another individual? Because say the two parties have that, it's going to flow. There's going to be a flow there. But when that flow reaches the zenith and what I've said starts to happen, designed to get us to face ourselves.
Yeah.
The real question is, can I love this person with all their shit?
And yeah, true.
Can I love myself now that it's coming out? And
can I live with this? I mean, that was another question I kept saying. Can I live with this?
You're living with it anyway. So what the fuck is the difference? Here's the main factor. Nobody can do the real work for anybody else except yourself.
That's right. And that's what it came down to. I was pissed because he wasn't willing to do the work. It does take work, and it takes a willingness to be with each other no matter what. And I guess it was conditional on my end too, because I needed to be in a partnership with someone who's willing to work on it, not just it's my way or the highway. But I guess I was saying that too. That's where it gets confusing for me.
Now you're getting real. You might have put that on him.
Yeah.
And all the blame shifting, and it's like, you're the one doing this. No, you're the one fucking doing it.
That's right. I was.
He's probably looking at you like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's right. That's right.
See what I'm saying? What the fuck are you trying to preserve? That which is keeping you in a place of stagnation? Away from that free fall? Wanting breakthrough?
Wanting breakthrough, yeah.
Because to be in a place of entropy and fear, that is not what life is about. Life is about letting that shit the fuck go so we can be in that free fall, because we are not in control of jack fucking shit.
That's
because
right.
Ego wants to be God. And it completely fucks with the will force in terms of how we are processing our experience. And the internal dragon is imprisoned. Screaming, let me free. I want to experience true freedom. What people assume true freedom is actually the fucking prison that is self-imposed upon themselves in projection. It fucking sucks. It sucks to the point where you can't even communicate that to the other, and your heart's wrenching and you're just like, what the fuck? And manas, mankind, our culture, our awareness, things in context to manas being merkstaved, is how we have been manipulated, and the self that wants to ignite from the core is being absorbed into the fucking abyss, and all of the anxiety and depression and our sense of morality, having been mind controlled in terms of moral relativism. This is my truth, and whatever I think is the only fucking truth in existence. And then you get into the tit for tat. Mm-hmm. And it's the tit for tat within yourself, projecting. There's no wisdom there. If they want breakthrough, if they want to overcome, if they want to move through these things, really? Compared to stay in a place of entropy and stagnation in terms of Isa. That's where the missteps come in context to Fehu. Greed is the cause point for the separation of kin. It's the separation from ourselves as well.
That's right.
Now, the last rune here in what I've laid so far is Dagas, which is breakthrough. Dagas is breakthrough. It's awakening. Proper knowledge and wisdom. That's what Dagas represents. It's time for you to embark on hope that's going to bring you that sense of harmony, balance. That's what Dagas represents, certainty. In the face of all of this uncertainty, you're happy 1 minute and then something happens to all this other fucking bullshit that I was talking about, and it's not sustained in terms of it expanding. What ends up happening? Everyone starts chasing their fucking tail. I got to do something to fucking sabotage this. Why? I'm not worthy. I'm no good. I'm not deserving. You see what we fucking do to ourselves?
I know.
Why the fuck do we do this? Why do we do it? Given over to the coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms, and there you have a sense of control. We have to let go. We have to let go of that shit. When you're in that free fall, you're not in control. And so Dagas, swinging it back up to prosperity, to Fehu, it has to be earned. And we will face the trials. We will face the tests again and again and again and again and again until we actually figure out what the fuck life is really all about. Mm-hmm. And it's not the achievements. It's not the awards. All of that's good and well, but it doesn't bridge the gap and it doesn't seal off the fucking void because of this giant gaping wounds that we're all dealing with in terms of the collective. Take it back to Manas. When are we going to start cooperating, actually coming at life from a place of wisdom and stop being self-absorbed and blind? Because in order for any sort of social order to go to the next fucking level and evolve, then we got to let go of all of this old fucking shit. Otherwise, it will continue for another grand cycle.
That's right.
And this is one of my main concerns right now, because we're about to cross the threshold going into the age of Aquarius for real. And Aquarius is all about the group in context of Manas, teams, friendships, networking, humanitarian endeavors, right?
There's a split happening.
Yep.
And there's going to be a group of consciousness that's going to go deeper into one direction, and then another group going to self-realize into transcendence and going deeper into the core and essence of who I am, which is love. I just see that the world is splitting and life is at a huge choice point. And this whole thing with COVID is really about an opportunity for transcendence.
It is our opportunity.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And you have records within yourself to access.
That I would like, which I would like to access more of.
The breakthrough is coming.
It's happening, yeah.
In context to Dagas. Stop trying to figure it out and allow it to reveal itself. Stop trying to be in control. You got to be in that free fall. I'm not fucking around over here.
I know you're not. I know you're not. That's why I, signed up for this, because I can hear it in your voice. I can hear the truth and the authenticity in your energy frequency. So
yeah, people assume to have issue with me because it goes back to what I said, and that is what they got to let go of.
That's right.
That's what they got to let go of. so we can experience that free fall, that freedom that we're so afraid of. It's like what Michael Tessarion says. People want freedom from freedom. They don't know what actual freedom is.
That
And
is
what they
true.
assume to be freedom is a self-imposed prison.
That's right.
Fucking Christ. We're missing what the whole gambit is about. And that split that you're talking about in context to humanity is what's happening. And it makes my heart fucking wrench.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people on the other side of the equation here. What the fucking hell?
Yeah.
People that have been very close. Is it
Yeah.
fucking worth it? Is it really fucking worth it, humanity? To perpetuate the old cycle bullshit with the assumption that you're moving into a new cycle? No, you're just playing out the same old fucking bullshit. And so the breakthrough, it's time for that.
That's right.
The harmony achieved. That's what Dagaz is all about, harmony. It's the gates of fucking wisdom.
Whoa. Whoa.
And the wisdom of the magicians, let alone the shaman, and the trajectory of connection to the higher force cannot be present unless that gate is achieved. Continue to chase your fucking tail into every other fucking situation in life. So if we're going to be successful, take it back to the reading here, Fehu, and actually experience that achievement. The missteps and the mistakes that we continue to make as humanity, take it back to Manas, how we have been manipulated against ourselves and one another. Dagaz is the way.
Do you know the history of the runes?
The history of the runes come from an individual sought wisdom above all things. And when he fared forth on the tree, with a scream, he spied the runes from Ganungagap. 9 long nights, 9 long days. And this is that experience of transformation that we are all meant to have happen. Like I said, you have your own fire letter codex to extract from the circle. Like I said, each culture has their fire letter codex, and everyone within that culture has their own unique fire letter codex. Fire letter codex are sound. The runes are sound.
Yeah.
They are tones. And when you tone the runes, or when you tone any fire letter codex in terms of blood code to soul code trajectory,
I'm feeling it right now. It's like circular, and there's this portal that opened.
yep, that's the well of Lord.
And there's this incredible energy happening in this portal. It feels like an expansion. Yeah. Sparks inside of me. I just really would like to learn more about the runes. There is something very powerful about this.
Now, I'm going to pull one more rune here to clarify everything.
Okay.
Now, in the picture, this stone specifically will be right in the center. That's the 5th rune, okay? And what you got here is Ulrus. This is everything to do with courage. This is everything to do with taking responsibility and vitality. Reignition of the will force in alignment, because things have been weakened to Ulrus being Merkstave. All of these opportunities that you have had to make it right, and all of the setbacks and self-doubt, low vitality bullshit that has nothing to do with true inner strength or ignition that brings courage, true courage, not some ego bullshit.
Right.
In context to Isa. So when we sacrifice unto ourselves and burn out everything that needs to be burned out within ourselves, then can the balance be achieved in context to Dagaz. From the first eye, which is our heart core intelligence. And that's where the portal opens up. That's what you're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, wow.
Go and tell me that magic isn't real.
Well, I would never say that. I understand even more. I'm understanding even more.
So when we take responsibility, held accountable. This is about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the road or wherever along the path, we're going to have to give an account, and you don't want to make a mistake. I fucking get it. I completely get it. But when you're in that free fall, that's when things are revealed, and then you know thyself, and you come into the knowing, the inner knowing, and nobody's in control here. Not in the fashion that we assume. Having self-control is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about it, feeling this energy.
We're getting into the mechanics of the universal laws of metaphysics. Okay. And like I said, there's many different portions, depending on blood codes and soul codes, would determine what an individual could potentially work with. If you have a mix of genetics, you have more to explore and knowing what will work for you in terms of path work. And it's no discrepancy against anything else. There is no discrepancy here in terms of what the councils brought forth in ancient times, because again, our mechanics are highly unique and we hold different portions, and it's not to compare or contrast anything. It's just to recognize that when you pick these things up and work with them, depending on who you are, I think the runes are for mankind. I think everything in terms of the Nordic mythos is for mankind. It's not just because there is no racism on this end of the equation. I just spoke with an individual that's being initiated into the Zulu shamanic tradition, African, and there are correlations all across the board. This is how I'm able to flow with every race, with every person that's come to me, sending them in a direction that would be conducive in terms of their codex, but all of it intertwines at the table of the four cardinal directions. Yet that has not happened since what happened did. And this is why the shadow dragon has continued to pull everything into the fucking void. And there's a difference between Ganunga Gap and the void. Fuck the void. Fuck the abyss. That is a fucking vacuum that rakes out all life. How can any sort of life force power come from the void that were ripped open, that suck our life force energy dry?
Interesting.
Ganunga Gap is the circle. It's the circle, and it's the portal and the essence of that feeling that you were just experiencing. Cracking it open a little bit. And so when the runes were spied, drawn forth from what I'm talking about here, this is what connects us to the higher force and the primal sound fields. It's sound song frequency. The runes I would encourage you to tone are Fehu, Ulruz, and Dagas. Isa and Manas, energetically speaking here, don't worry about those. There's your reading.
Thank you.
You are most welcome.
This was really good. Really, really good.
Now, to everyone out there that just watched everything up to this point, it is to recognize that these arts and sciences are absolutely vital to our existence, navigation, and inquiry in terms of energy. Everything is energy. And to the flow, it is to recognize again the hour that we are in context to what is standing in the way in terms of that portal cracking open. You witness Shemaiah literally experience what I have been speaking about so many times throughout these segments. And so to everything, to rune readings, to tarot readings, to astropsychological readings, to the full rites initiation session, which also puts individuals in the position for follow-up sessions and open floor to pretty much get into anything more advanced initiation in context of Ulfidnar training and a lot of other things. There's the Black Earth Library as well, which again holds over 40,000 books of occult reference material. If I held one hard copy for every single book, I would need a giant temple. And you know what? Why not? It's time to create the libraries again. It's time to come together again. It's time to get over all of this bullshit and recognize who we are and why we came. And the fact that we can overcome anything, as far as I am concerned. Again, not bypassing anything, but this is the attitude that we must take. It's the attitude. It's what we choose despite the circumstances, despite what we think or feel otherwise in terms of contrast, challenges, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, or temporal. There's nothing that can't be achieved. There's nothing that can't be worked through. There's nothing that can't be overcome. Doors are open to the Mystery School, everybody. More is going to continue to be revealed on the platform. But no matter what's going on out there, no matter where you are in life, remember, we must believe in ourselves and encourage and empower those around us, especially in these times. Those of you out there that are interested in the Full Rites Initiation session or any of the other services, including rune readings like you just witnessed, go to the website at blackearthproductions.com, check out the services page, and send me an email at blackearthproductions with an S at hotmail.com. There's a lot that's unfolding. There's a lot that is going to be developed in terms of the procession and the threshold that we are about to cross going into 2021. So if I don't get anything on before that, again, be empowered, be encouraged. This is Seth Casposa, Black Earth Productions. I'll speak with more of you soon.